So lastly, the other thing I'd like to point out is Kairos, which has to do with timing. And this isn't something that, this isn't a concept that I really came to understand until I taught this one book, Understanding Rhetoric. And it talked about the use of timing and its importance in appealing to readers or viewers, right? So when I say timing, what I mean is the currency of topic and examples, the pacing of something, so how much time you spend on a particular topic or point, and then also the structure, the order in which content appears. So examples of effective timing would be Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, right? That was delivered at a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. The push for gun legislation following a mass shooting, often, and this can be representative of other moments, something goes wrong in society and that becomes a platform for driving the work forward. You can see that in the wake of George Floyd's murder and the protests or marches that have been that have pushed for change, right? And hopefully they will continue to do so. But it can also be seen on an everyday basis in terms of sending a text or email at a particular time in order to get a particular result from the recipient. If you think about it, like there are certain times, if you're going to text your parents something, there are certain times you probably are more likely to send them requests for help because you don't want to send them something when they're already overwhelmed. Or the example I always gave in class is you would never ask for money or some type of favor if you had just handed them a report card that showed that you had a D, right? You would consider waiting until you had done really well on a test, and then you would turn around and ask for something. Anyway, so those are just a couple of practical examples. But here, what we have is a magazine cover of Kobe following his death, right? And Time magazine chose this cover because they were wanting to commemorate his passing. And so those kinds of things, that use of timing, it further engages the reader, right? So how does that manifest in writing itself, right? Because here we're talking more about images or political action, right? But it also is something to think about when you're reading something, right? Because they've chosen, hopefully, to use timing as part of it, but also for your own writing. So choosing a current topic, right? Choosing something that is relevant to people today. The pacing, how long is spent on a certain content over others. A certain point in your essay might need more focus. The order in which content is delivered, so structure, and that's something we should always think about anyway, right? A selection of certain examples, do you use a contemporary example or an older example? And depending on the context, one may be more useful than the other. And then also repetition, referring to previous points or examples. So if you make a point in the beginning of your paper and then several paragraphs later you see a parallel to that previous point, or you want to kind of add to it, right? Then you would use repetition as a means of further emphasizing that initial point. So these are just some ways, and we'll continue to talk about it, that timing plays as much of a role in the effectiveness of your content as the use of the other appeals.